Found out my wife's cheating, but the real twist is her loyalty to my wallet. You ever wake up one morning and realize your life has turned into an episode of some awkward reality show, one you wouldn't admit watching, let alone starring in? Welcome to my new normal. My name is Mike. I'm 54 years old, and I just found out that my trophy wife is less interested in my aging charm and more invested in the charm of my credit card. Spoiler alert, it's exactly as humiliating as it sounds. Let me paint you a picture first, Reddit. I'm currently a minister in the state government. Sounds fancy, right? It mostly means I spend my days attending endless meetings, pretending to listen carefully, and trying to avoid nodding off when my colleagues drone on about policy reform. It's not glamorous, but it pays well, really well. And I'm not ashamed to admit that at some point, maybe around my 50th birthday, I figured life owed me a little excitement, and that's when Brittany walked into my life. Literally walked right into me at some upscale charity gala. She was 24 at the time, dazzlingly beautiful, and managed to spill a full glass of champagne directly onto my $400 tie. She laughed charmingly, apologized profusely, and within minutes, I was hooked. You know the cliché about older men falling for younger women? Turns out clichés exist for a reason. We got married after less than a year of dating, and, for a while, I was genuinely happy, or at least I told myself I was. Brittany didn't work, but she had perfected the art of spending her days meaningfully, as she called it. For her, this meant brunches, daily yoga classes, and regular, expensive spa visits. My friends called her my midlife crisis miracle, while my political rivals called her something far less flattering behind closed doors. But, blinded by her youth, beauty, and what I mistakenly thought was love, I shrugged off their comments as pure envy. Brittany quickly developed a keen interest in Instagram, turning our relationship into a curated feed of luxury vacations, spontaneous trips to Paris or Milan, and lavish dinners that I, admittedly, was always footing the bill for. She genuinely had a talent for making our marriage look spectacularly romantic online, and I genuinely believed it was, at least initially. I conveniently ignored her less charming habits, like her obsession with designer handbags, shoes she wore once and forget about, or the stack of unopened books she bought solely because their covers matched her aesthetic. But recently, even I began to see the cracks forming. Brittany started having what she called personal trainer sessions, always scheduled suspiciously close to lunch or dinner. She developed sudden interests in nutrition seminars, late-night art classes, and meditation retreats that involved overnight stays at luxury resorts. I laughed it off, joking to colleagues that my wife was turning into a spiritual guru, but deep down, something felt off. Still, denial is easier when you're busy, successful, and deeply afraid to admit you've been played. The truth finally hit me like a ton of bricks one afternoon when I canceled an important meeting and came home early. Brittany was on the patio, whispering urgently into her phone with an oddly serious expression I'd never seen before. That brief, unsettling moment sparked my curiosity, and like a fool who's finally ready to face reality, I started paying attention. And let's just say, I wish I hadn't. If you've never experienced the sudden realization that you're living a lie, let me warn you. It feels a lot like your entire life turning into one big sarcastic punchline, with you as the joke. Stay tuned, Reddit. Trust me, it gets messy. Fast forward to the moment my carefully built house of cards finally toppled, and trust me, it's a scene straight out of a soap opera. Except it happened to me. I'd love to say I discovered Brittany's affair through some dignified detective work or meticulous sleuthing, but life isn't a movie, and I'm definitely no Sherlock Holmes. Instead, the truth fell into my lap thanks to Brittany's own spectacular carelessness. It was just another Wednesday afternoon. I'd left work early to surprise her. My therapist had suggested I spend more quality time at home. Ironic, I know. So I showed up at our sprawling lakeside mansion around lunchtime. Brittany, of course, wasn't expecting me back this early. The house was strangely quiet, her pink sports car suspiciously absent from the driveway. Something felt off, but at first, I shrugged it off. Maybe she was out shopping, or perhaps at one of her increasingly mysterious yoga classes. That's when the universe decided it wasn't done tormenting me. As I walked through our oversized kitchen, glancing idly at the endless stack of Amazon boxes piled up near the entrance, I heard a small ping come from the counter. Brittany had left her shiny, bejeweled smartphone behind, unlocked, wide open, practically begging me to look at it. And yeah, I'm aware going through your spouse's phone is textbook unhealthy behavior, but something about that blinking notification practically screamed my name. I glanced at the screen, instantly wishing I hadn't. There it was, bold, unambiguous, and infuriatingly clear. A message from someone named Jake. A text preview so detailed that it painted a vivid picture. Plans for a hotel room, champagne, and moments of closeness. Brittany had repeatedly told me she was too exhausted to share with me. But wait, it gets better. Because in Brittany's case, cheating was just the tip of a very expensive iceberg. As I scrolled upward, my pulse pounding louder with every swipe, a darker realization hit me. Her lover wasn't just some random guy. He was Dylan, her 32-year-old personal trainer. The very same trainer I'd personally hired, recommended by a golfing buddy, and clearly former friend, who had assured me, "He's the best in town, Mike. Really knows how to push your wife to her limits." Oh, he'd been pushing limits, all right, and Brittany clearly wasn't the only one benefiting. Between their revealing texts, they casually discussed how long she'd have to keep up the charade until I finally bought her that beachfront villa she'd been eyeing for months. Turns out the intimate training sessions I'd been funding were exactly as close as my now shattered ego feared. Brittany didn't just cheat, she had a full-on business plan, and I was the clueless investor. Standing there, phone in hand, heart in my throat, I suddenly remembered every extravagant purchase I'd blindly approved. The $12,000 necklace she wore only once. The spontaneous trips to Paris she insisted were essential for her mental health. Even the yacht party she organized for her 26th birthday, and curiously, didn't invite me to. I had assumed this was just the cost of keeping a beautiful young woman happy. I didn't realize I'd signed up for the premium package of betrayal. As reality settled in, rage gave way to an icy clarity. I wasn't just being cheated on. I was being systematically drained, taken for everything I was worth, and Brittany's loyalty had clearly never gone further than my monthly bank statements. Standing there, feeling humiliated, betrayed, and unbelievably foolish, I knew things had to change, but not before I figured out how deep this rabbit hole actually went. After all, revenge, like my soon-to-be ex-wife's taste in champagne, is best served ice-cold. And trust me, Reddit, I plan to serve it beautifully. Alright, Reddit, after discovering that my picture-perfect marriage was less about romance and more about a transactional arrangement disguised as marriage vows, I decided to reclaim some dignity. I'm a minister. Diplomacy and strategy are my bread and butter. But dealing with Brittany's betrayal required a level of calculated pettiness even I didn't know I possessed. Step 1. Acting like nothing was wrong. The hardest part wasn't smiling and pretending things were normal at home. It was hiding the disgust when Brittany kissed me on the cheek after another exhausting day of yoga. Her trainer, by the way, looked suspiciously like he belonged on the cover of Men's Health. My colleagues had always joked about my poker face in meetings. Now, it became my greatest weapon. Brittany didn't suspect a thing, probably assuming that her middle-aged husband was far too busy and clueless to notice her extracurricular activities. My first move was subtle. Brittany had a very specific taste in luxury. Her life revolved around her credit cards, all funded exclusively by me. She'd grown accustomed to swiping without limits, secure in the belief that my bank account was infinite. So I quietly restricted the limits on her platinum cards, watching her increasing confusion with a strange sense of satisfaction as transactions began to decline at her favorite luxury boutiques. She masked her irritation with the usual charming smile, blaming the bank glitch on me working too hard again. But inside, I knew her frustration was mounting. It was glorious. Then, I took it up a notch. Brittany had recently convinced me, or rather, emotionally manipulated me, into agreeing to purchase an extravagant beachfront villa she'd been obsessing over. I'd even pretended to agree eagerly, just to keep up appearances. But instead of signing the deal in her name, I quietly arranged it so that the property would be purchased, but solely under my name, a detail I conveniently forgot to share with her. It felt like a small victory, knowing that Brittany's calculated investment in our marriage wouldn't pay off quite the way she'd planned. And just when I thought I'd had enough revenge, fate decided to deliver me another unexpected card. Last Tuesday, during another one of Brittany's mysterious disappearances, I noticed an unfamiliar black Range Rover parked 2 blocks from our home. Out of pure curiosity and a healthy dose of paranoia, I hired a private investigator. Yeah, cliché, I know, but stick with me. Turns out my darling Brittany wasn't just cheating with her ripped personal trainer. She'd also been secretly meeting someone else. Someone whose identity made this whole scandal infinitely more complicated and delightfully ironic. The second guy in the picture wasn't some random nobody. He was Jake Hunter, the charismatic 35-year-old son of my political rival, Senator Ronald Hunter. Jake, infamous in our circles for his wild partying and questionable financial ethics, had somehow charmed my young wife into an affair. This wasn't just cheating. This was political sabotage wrapped up in close encounters. And here I was, stuck in a twisted triangle I hadn't signed up for. A trophy wife getting close with both her fitness coach and the son of my fiercest enemy. My life was officially a soap opera, complete with betrayal, scandal, and a generous dose of dark humor. Honestly, you couldn't write this stuff. Yet here I am, living it. So now, Reddit, I'm faced with the ultimate question. Do I quietly dismantle Brittany's luxurious life, piece by painful piece, or expose everything publicly, letting the chips fall where they may? Either way, one thing's for sure. I didn't spend 54 years climbing the ladder of political success just to become the laughingstock of every gossip circle in town. Stay tuned. Because I promise you, things are about to escalate dramatically. Just when I thought my life couldn't get any crazier, Brittany decided to raise the stakes. Apparently, my carefully planned revenge, a delightful exposé of her affairs that sent her pristine social image crashing down, was too much for my sweet, vengeful bride to handle gracefully. Who knew a 27-year-old influencer could possess the tactical cunning of a CIA operative? Clearly, I underestimated her. 3 nights ago, I was in my home office, nursing a glass of overpriced whiskey and quietly celebrating my victory. It was midnight, and the house was dark, unusually silent. Something about that silence felt off. Call it intuition or paranoia, but after living with Brittany for 3 years, I'd learned to trust my instincts, usually about 3 years too late. A sudden, sharp smell interrupted my bitter reflections. Smoke. My heart leapt into my throat as I sprinted down the stairs toward the kitchen, only to see orange flames greedily devouring the custom-made curtains Brittany had insisted upon during her last decorating spree. Fire licked across the expensive hardwood cabinets and jumped toward the marble countertop, fueled by what looked suspiciously like the remnants of Brittany's invoice, her twisted, ironic way of billing me for emotional damages. That dramatic gesture was her final message to me, bolded and underlined in literal flames. Outside, illuminated by the growing inferno, I spotted Brittany's bright pink sports car parked conspicuously across the street. She was leaning casually against it, sipping an iced latte, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the cup, watching calmly as our dream home burned. It felt like a surreal music video, except the lyrics were my rapidly collapsing marriage and the chorus, her icy laughter echoing in my head. As the sound of approaching fire trucks pierced the air, Brittany calmly climbed into her car, threw me a theatrical wave, and drove off into the night, leaving me to explain to my neighbors, my constituents, and eventually the police, exactly why my perfect suburban mansion had just become primetime entertainment for every news helicopter within 50 miles. Standing there on the front lawn, in boxer shorts and a rumpled Armani dress shirt, watching the flames consume the life I'd foolishly built around a lie, I suddenly burst into bitter laughter. I mean, let's be honest, Reddit, what did I expect? I'd played with fire for years, ignoring every warning sign. Was it really any surprise that Brittany decided to take that metaphor literally? But don't worry. If she wants to play dirty, she'd better be prepared for my next move, because now, it's personal. And unlike our sham marriage, my revenge will be real, public, and very, very satisfying. Stay tuned, Reddit. If she wants war, she's got it. After watching my million-dollar dream home burn down, you'd think I'd be devastated. But standing barefoot on the lawn, the heat from the flames warming my face, all I felt was a strange sense of liberation. Brittany had torched the very symbol of our empty marriage, and in some twisted way, she'd done me a favor. But gratitude aside, I wasn't about to let her off the hook. If Brittany thought torching my house was the climax, she severely underestimated a man who survived 20 years in politics. The scandal erupted like a volcano the next morning. Headlines screamed variations of, "Minister's wife torches home after affair scandal." My face was plastered everywhere, from local news to viral TikTok reels. Colleagues called with feigned concern, thinly disguising their hunger for gossip, while reporters hounded my office, desperate for statements. It was chaos, but chaos I could manage. I've spent a lifetime dealing with headlines. Brittany, on the other hand, had no idea what she'd unleashed. I decided my next step carefully. Politicians are creatures of habit, always having a strategy, even when our personal lives implode spectacularly. I calmly rented a suite at a discreet luxury hotel downtown, away from prying eyes and eager reporters. From my temporary headquarters, I meticulously executed my ultimate counterattack. First, I froze every joint account and canceled every credit card she ever used, leaving her only enough cash for a coffee and a croissant, though even Starbucks might be above her budget now. Next, I handed over undeniable evidence of Brittany's affair with Senator Hunter's son Jake directly to a journalist who had long opposed Hunter's controversial politics. With one tactical move, I turned Brittany's private betrayal into a front-page political scandal, something that would tarnish Senator Hunter's squeaky clean reputation and destroy Brittany's last chance of social redemption. Revenge, after all, isn't just best served cold. It's tastier when served in full view of the public. The media feasted like vultures. Within days, Brittany went from victimized wife to political seductress, vilified and ridiculed by the same people who had once envied her lavish lifestyle. Her Instagram following collapsed overnight, her carefully constructed persona melting faster than the skincare products she secretly mocked. Watching her downfall was surprisingly satisfying. I know it's petty, Reddit, but after years of being played, I couldn't help enjoying every second. Yet, even amidst the chaos, I found myself oddly reflective. Here I was, in my mid-50s, publicly humiliated, divorced, and standing in the ashes of a life built on lies. And despite the wreckage, I felt a strange clarity. Maybe losing everything is what it takes to finally start over. No pretense, no manipulation, no trophy wives. Just me and the truth I'd avoided for too long. But the moment I thought it was finally over, my phone lit up again. Another text from Brittany, this one short and chillingly direct. Mike, you ruined my life. Now I'll ruin yours. Prepare for the worst. I stared at the screen, my amusement fading fast. Brittany was wounded, cornered, and clearly desperate. If there's one thing I've learned from politics, it's that desperation can drive people to unpredictable extremes. And Brittany was never one to bluff, especially when cornered. I'd won this battle, but clearly, the war wasn't over yet. If you've made it this far, Reddit, congrats! You're officially a passenger on my train wreck of a life, and we're about to roll into a station I genuinely never saw coming. After Brittany's cryptic and honestly chilling message, I was ready for anything. Or so I thought. Days passed with unsettling silence. The media frenzy had simmered down to a steady buzz, and I slowly started to piece my life back together. My lawyer reassured me that Brittany's threats were empty, nothing but the desperate ramblings of someone who'd lost her golden ticket. Still, I knew her too well to dismiss her completely. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, just as I was settling into my rented hotel suite, the news exploded again, this time worse than before. Brittany had surfaced on national television, teary-eyed, holding what appeared to be a diary, presenting it dramatically to millions. My blood ran cold as she calmly detailed years of supposed abuse and neglect, accusations meticulously crafted and devastatingly convincing. With an Oscar-worthy performance, she painted herself as the innocent victim and me as a calculating, cruel husband who emotionally starved her, controlling her every move. The public ate it up. Suddenly, Brittany was back, this time as a survivor and advocate. The online narrative flipped again, transforming me overnight from wronged husband to political villain. Calls poured in from panicked advisors, my party leadership demanding immediate resignations. Friends and allies swiftly distanced themselves, careful not to get burned by my radioactive fallout. But even in this chaos, I knew something wasn't right. Brittany was manipulative, but she wasn't this clever on her own. Someone had coached her, guided her, funded her comeback, and I was determined to find out who. So I dug deeper, pulling strings, calling in favors I'd accumulated over decades of political horse trading. After days of dead ends, my investigator finally revealed the last, cruel twist in this nightmarish plot. Senator Hunter himself, Jake's father, my fiercest political enemy, had secretly orchestrated Brittany's public revenge. She'd become his puppet, a pawn in a brutal political game designed to permanently remove me from power, using scandal instead of votes. Yet, despite feeling betrayed, manipulated, and utterly destroyed, a strange admiration settled over me. Hunter had executed a flawless political assassination. Brittany was merely a tool, and I'd fallen directly into his trap. The irony wasn't lost on me. After decades of surviving political warfare, I'd been outplayed by a 27-year-old socialite and an aging senator with an axe to grind. Now, with my reputation in ruins, career shattered, and Brittany enjoying a disturbingly successful career as a media darling and activist, I'm left with one nagging thought. Revenge might have tasted sweet, but it cost me everything. As I sit alone, staring out over the skyline from my darkened hotel suite, a message pops up on my phone from an unknown number. The screen glows ominously in the dark, displaying only 3 words. It's not over. So here's my question to you, Reddit. If you were me, would you fight to clear your name, risking even more damage, or walk away entirely, accepting defeat to start fresh somewhere far away?